Yo, what up, guys? Welcome to the showcase. So in this first section, I really just kind of wanted to show off the boss dungeon gear that I was running for the Necro. Not really to show off anything in particular, but to kind of show that I was a little bit under geared compared to the Rogue, and it really didn't matter at all. That's just how strong the Necro was. Even without a full legendary set, I was able to just kind of go in and ignore mechanics and blow the boss up in such a short amount of time. But I also did want to kind of preview what the gear was going to look like once we got to legendaries, and I know the uniques are going to have a few more stats, but this is generally what we're going to be looking at when the game fully releases. So in this next section, as you can see, we're going to be looking at the skill tree. The skill tree was uh, a little bare bones, in my opinion. It was the same layout for every class. So in this first section, you have what you could pick from your resource generators. I picked a Bone Splinter spell that could split between multiple enemies and do some pretty good damage. And then I went with the Bone Spear for my resource spender. And then the next section was kind of like your utility abilities and stuff like that. I picked up the Blood Mist, which was pretty damn broken. It allowed you to go immune, break CC effects, and then I spec'd into it to where it would drop additional corpses because this whole build centered around Corpse Explosion, which is going to be the next ability that I showcase right here. I went ahead and dumped all the other points I had available into other perks and other abilities that would greatly benefit Corpse Explosion, including radius and damage. And then I just kind of wanted to show that I pretty much neglected everything under this tree because that's how strong Corpse Explosion was. You really didn't need ultimates or anything else. You could pretty much just spam those three buttons, those three attacks, and then if things got hairy, just pop your Blood Mist and reposition yourself.
For the sermon, we will drink deep of you.
I'm out of essence.
So as you can see, the fight doesn't last very long with Necro. It's really that strong, and you really don't have to worry about mechanics because of the amount of damage that you put out. And even if he was able to get mechanics off, you can pretty much ignore them. So like I said, this is the Rogue's gear now. Ultimately, I just wanted to kind of showcase that the Rogue was in full legendary when I went to go do the dungeon boss on him as well. And not only that, he also had better perks from the gear itself. I was able to find some additional pieces later on for the Necro that made it even stronger, but the perks that I had for the Rogue at this time, in my opinion, were definitely better. And they were a complete full set for the Rogue, so mostly just wanted to showcase that. But due to the fact that the Rogue is a melee character, it just played so much different, and you actually have to pay attention to mechanics, move around, avoid things, and you can't just turn your brain off and spam click. So this next section we'll be looking at the skill tree, which like I said is the same layout, which I think Blizzard could have done a much better job of adding a little bit more flavor to the skill trees, but that's just my opinion. And once again, we'll start with the resource generator, and this one I went with puncture, which is kind of a dagger throw ability, and then spec'd into it to make it to where it would split into like 3 daggers that he would throw. This was also a good way to generate combo points, which was the rogue specialization. And then Blade Flurry was my kind of bread and butter skill. This is where a lot of my damage came from. And once you racked up 3 combo points and used Blade Flurry, it gave you additional damage, plus it gave you a bunch of attack speed, which was very, very useful. But overall, the idea for my spec with this guy was to pretty much get my bread and butter skills, and then turn around and dump the rest of the points into anything that gave me a little bit of survivability, and then anything else that would increase my damage to healthy enemies, injured enemies, which is below 30% health, and then vulnerable enemies as well as crowd controlled enemies. Dash was my utility ability, which was actually pretty strong. It did a decent amount of damage as well as some insane mobility. And then later on, I got a perk on my offhand that would drop a smoke bomb wherever I ended up, so it increased my CC potential. That change paired up with the poison trap made it just super strong. And once again, spec'd into poison trap to increase my CC ability, adding the 1.5 second stun. And with the rogue, since I couldn't just kind of spam one ability the entire time, I did go ahead and kind of fill out the tree. The poison damage on this build was pretty good, so in the next section I picked up poison imbuement, which would just coat your weapons and allow your next two damaging abilities, specific abilities, to spread poison around to everybody that you hit. Using it on dash was really effective. And then I ultimately picked up the clone, which is the ult, and then spec'd into it where it would give me immunity anytime I popped it. That way I could avoid any kind of CCs or anything like that when in the first like 5 seconds or so. So that was essentially the rogue build, and next up you'll see the dungeon boss fight, which is the same boss that I fought on the Necro.
I'm not ready yet. Need more time.
So as you can see, definitely not as smooth as what the Necro, or as easy as what the Necro is. And I will admit that definitely wasn't the most efficient or most optimized encounter for the Rogue. I actually wasn't anticipating that boss to be there, so I was in kind of a hurry to make sure I got the clip. So that played a little bit of a factor into it. But you definitely have to avoid mechanics and pay attention to what's going on, as opposed to the Necro, who could just really stand back and spam cast away. Because as you can see, that one barrage almost killed me. So definitely have to pay close attention to what's going on. Definitely a different kind of playstyle. In this section, I just kind of wanted to show off some of the upgrades that I gotten for the Necro, as I had been playing for a little bit, and also show that I was in full legendary gear for when I was doing these dungeon clips. And you can kind of see the damage is even stronger when I was playing through the dungeons in these next couple clips with the Necro. Especially with the Bone Spear, I got an ability to where every time I would pop corpse explosion, you could get a bunch of stacks that increase the Bone Spear. And the first elite that I come across in the dungeon eats a Bone Spear that takes like 75% of its health, which was just insanely strong in my opinion. So here's the dungeon. This is the same dungeon that I ran for hours. I think it was the most efficient dungeon. And this kind of gives you an idea of what the normal gameplay is going to be like for the Necro at least mid-level. So you can see down towards the bottom of the screen, right above my experience bar, there's a counter for the corpse generator, and once it hits 5, I can throw the Bone Spear out, and as you saw, the Bone Spear hit that elite for like 75% of its damage. Just an absolute insane amount, I think, at this level. And you can notice that I am paying a little bit of attention to where the CCs are, trying to avoid standing in the giant frost circles and that sort of thing, but generally speaking, I'm not too worried about anything because of the strength of the golems and the skeleton army that I have. their survivability was really good, and then for some reason Blizzard thought it would be a great idea to have your barrier perks on your armor also give barriers to your skeletons and your golems, so it just increased their survivability. Which I think is a great idea, but it seemed kind of unnecessary. So as you can see, I wasn't scared there at all and just spammed Corpse Explosion, which is generally the gameplay for this. Throw out the splinters to get people vulnerable, chuck a couple bone spears every once in a while, and then blow up corpses. And then if things ever got hairy, I would go into Blood Mist and reposition myself, while also dropping corpses, and then jump out of there and blow stuff up. So I'm speeding up the clip now because I think you have kind of a good idea of what's going on and how the playstyle is going to be for the Necro. But you can see I pretty much funneled all of those leads into one little channel and was just able to stand back and just blow them up with Corpse Explosion over and over and over again without really having to worry about anything. And I will say they did a great job with the graphic and the sound effects for the legendary drops. Seeing that orange beam of light come up from the gear was really cool. Instant hit of dopamine, and you knew you were going to have a chance of getting something good. And there's multiple shrines throughout the game like this. That shrine in particular was able to give your abilities extra like shards that it would shoot out. And I was also just trying to show you guys what little part of the dungeon I had ran. My gut told me to go ahead and keep pursuing through the dungeon, keep going through the dungeon. So I always listen to my gut, and it turned out to be a really good idea. Bam, there's another unique, or another legendary. So at this point I would always head back, check out the legendaries that I had acquired, see if there was any kind of upgrades or anything like that. And if there wasn't, I would just turn around and salvage to get some more transmog, or turn around and sell it. And then I would reset the dungeons and head right back in. And that's generally the gameplay for the Necro. Just turn your brain off and blow stuff up. So next up you'll see the same dungeon, but with the rogue. And as you can see as we go through this dungeon that I have to pay a little bit more attention to what's going on around me. I have to make sure my positioning is a little bit better, a little bit safer. But still not as difficult as what it was for Barbarian or Druid. Especially Druid, unfortunately. They were just very underpowered. And I felt the Rogue was in that same ballpark until I figured out a decent spec, and then also got the Rain of Arrows perk where you see you dropping down right now. That increased the damage, I wouldn't say tenfold, but it really increased the damage drastically on the Rogue for me at least. So as you can see, there's a lot more going on when you're playing the Rogue in a melee class, having to make sure you avoid things, jumping into combat, out of combat. But I'm very used to playing Rogue-style characters in RPGs, so that high risk, high reward kind of playstyle was nothing new to me. It still felt pretty comfortable. And then, just like in D3, there are loot goblins, as you can see, which you really want to be able to kill as quickly as possible so you can get the high-end rewards. So I kind of ignored everything else that was going on, almost to my detriment, but we were able to get the kill on this sucker and get some good loot from it. I really did hate the Frost Shamans. Them being able to just chain cast this frost shard ability on you to slow you down was incredibly annoying as a melee character. Really didn't pay too much attention to it at all as the Necro because I wasn't moving around a whole lot anyways, but as a melee character it was very frustrating. Then once again, we're going to go ahead and speed up the clip because I think at this point you kind of get the idea of what we're looking at for the rogue content here. A lot of it is build up to combo points to at least 2 combo points, spend it with Blade Flurry, that way I can get my attack speed and a good chunk of AoE damage out, and then rinse and repeat over and over and over again, drop poison traps and dash in and out if need be. I should have been using my poison imbuement a little bit more than what I was, but the rain of arrows was proccing so often that I didn't feel like it was necessary. And that was one bug or one issue that I did notice while playing a controller. If you just dashed to a certain area, you would almost like automatically lock onto something that was off screen, which sometimes was barrels, and that could get kind of annoying because you could just randomly CC yourself unintentionally. And once again, I just wanted to show that I was pretty much running the same circle. In the dungeon, would collect as much loot as I could because there was quite a few chests of loot goblins and elites in that one little circle, and then would head back. This time around, I actually did benefit from getting a couple upgrades, so I was able to go to a vendor in the game, take those aspects off those legendary items, and add them to some armor pieces that I was currently wearing. So that was a nice little perk, nice little upgrade. So here's a level 35 boss. Pay attention to the right hand side. You're going to see a druid get 2-shotted here. So he's dead.
I'm out of essence.
He was a little bit too low a level to be trying this out. But as you can see, not a whole lot to worry about with the rogue, and I will say when I do this on the rogue in the next clip, it is a far more optimized fight. Way more efficient with the skill usage here. So as you can see, much better fight than what the boss dungeon was. And these last few clips are just going to be the cosmetics that I was able to unlock throughout my playtime. I, some reason, lost the full video that I had created of the Necro cosmetics. I'm not really sure what happened there, but I was able to get a couple smaller clips that showed off the helmets and the two-handed scythes that I had. My favorite scythe was definitely the one that I'm wearing in these clips. It looked like something out of Alien vs. Predator. Absolutely love that design, and I think overall the Necro gear was just really top notch. The one thing I didn't quite understand was the Necro female model, for whatever reason, has absolutely no boobs like whatsoever. I'm not sure why Blizzard is so scared of cleavage and tits now, but ever since the sexual harassment, sexual assault cases, this is essentially them going completely 180 opposite end of the spectrum, which is kind of frustrating. I think even women would agree that it's nice to have at least some curvature, and I know it is a Necro, so it is kind of, I guess, maybe a little weird, maybe, I don't know, but in my opinion, I think they could have done a little bit better job. And then this last clip is going to be the rogue cosmetics. This is all of the cosmetics that I was unable to unlock throughout the playthrough. And I think they had more of like a Mortal Kombat-esque kind of look to their gear, which I really dug. I thought that was so cool. And overall, I really enjoyed my time with the game. I think there's quite a few things that they can improve on. I'm still a little worried as to what all endgame is going to be about. I feel like they're just lacking in content. at the moment, but the game itself plays really, really well. It feels great to use your abilities. The sounds of the game are awesome. The environments and everything all look amazing. And it just plays how a Diablo should play, in my opinion. But I am a little worried about the imbalancing. I ran into a couple weird like warping issues going in and out of towns. There was a lot of just random invisible walls that you would encounter in mid-dungeon that were just so awkwardly placed. I'm not sure if those were also bugs or just really poor design, but some of them could lead to some serious issues and almost getting you killed. So hopefully all of that gets smoothed out, but with only 2-ish months till release, I highly doubt there's a whole lot of optimization they can do. But with that said, overall I still enjoyed my time. I think it was a lot of fun. The group content was super enjoyable as well. There's a lot of stuff that you can do just out in the world that isn't just dungeon based, so I think there's going to be a little bit for everyone to enjoy. And yeah, I think this is something that we could potentially be dropping a lot of time into once it releases. It may not be my main game, so to speak, but definitely something that I continuously come back to because they are going to do Battle Pass seasons or seasons just in general. So lots of updates, lots of new content to check out as the time goes on, which will be exciting. But that's pretty much all I've got for you guys. I'll let you go ahead and enjoy the last little bit of the cosmetics here. Thank you again for watching this, and I'll catch you later.